So welcome everyone. So today we are going to discuss about a switch reluctance motor, the construction and principle of operation of a switch reluctance motor, and the power semiconductor circuits that we are using to control the operation of a switch reluctance motor. So we shall see this in detail. So going to the constructional part of a switch reluctance motor, it is similar to the construction of a stepper motor as we have already discussed in your second module. So the major difference between the switch reluctance motor and a stepper motor is that in a switch reluctance motor continuous rotation is being allowed, so that is possible in case of a switch reluctance motor, whereas in a stepper motor the operation is in steps. Here also the another difference is there is a position encoder in order to uh, sense the position of the rotor. There is a position encoder, that is an additional circuit that is there. According to that only the next excitation, according to the output of the position sensor only, the windings are being excited. So these are the major differences that exist in a switch reluctance motor compared to the stepper motor. So going to the constructional part, so this is actually the interior part. We can see this is the stator windings. So you can see this is the stator windings, these ones, and this is the rotor circuit, this one. Okay, so this is the detailed rotor circuit, and this is the stator one. So going to the detailed construction, this is the cross-sectional view of a switch reluctance motor, and you can see that this A1, B1, C1, D1, A2, B2, C2, D2 are that of the stator windings, and the interior part, this represents the rotor section. Okay, that is the rotor section. Now the stator is nothing but made up of a silicon steel stamping with inward projecting poles. Inward projecting poles are there, and the number of poles can be either an even number or an odd number. If it is an even number, then the opposite poles carries the field, or actually the field windings are there in each poles, and all these poles carry the field windings, and the opposite poles, the winding on the opposite poles are connected in series to form a winding. Okay, the coils on the opposite poles are connected to form a winding. So actually you can see that, here you can see that this is a pole here. So this is a pole, this is another pole. So these are all poles, and it can be an even number of poles or odd number of poles, and over the poles there are windings. So these are the windings, you can see the windings here. Now in some situations, if the poles are of even number, then the opposite pole windings, that is over the poles there are windings, of course, what I told you, and these windings are connected in series. These coils are connected in series to form a winding. Okay, so that is what is explained here. All these poles carry field coils, and these field coils on the opposite poles are connected in series, and they can be called as a phase winding. So here in this diagram you can see that there are, so this one, you can see that this one is one phase. These are the opposite pole windings. Okay, so this is the first pole A1 and A2, these are the two poles, and over the poles you have a field coils, and these coils are connected in series to form first phase, so A1 and A2. Then here you can say this two, B1 and B2 are the second phase, and similarly C1 C2, similarly D1 and D2 are the phases. Okay. Now these these phase windings are connected to the DC supply through some power semiconductor switching circuitry, and that switching circuitry we shall see in detail in the next sessions. Now going to the rotor section. Now the rotor section is also made up of some silicon steel stampings, but it has outward projecting poles. You can see these are the outward projecting poles. Outward projecting poles. See, these are the outward projecting poles, and here there is no windings. And also here there will be a position sensor that will be there in the rotor shaft. So this is the structure. Now going to the principle of operation. Now just as in a stepper motor, when these stator windings are excited alternately, the rotor will move to a position in such a way that the reluctance is minimum. Okay, the rotor will try to move to a location or to a position where the reluctance is minimum and the flux is maximum. So when the reluctance is minimum, what about the inductance? The inductance is maximum. Okay, inductance is maximum. So in that way, that is the basic principle behind this. Now here we can see that I am switching circuitry are there, of course. Now I can say that this is phase A dash, first phase, then B dash is the second phase, C dash is the third phase, and D dash is the fourth phase. Now I am going to turn on switch S1. See that this is the basic switching circuitry. A dash are connected to a switch S1. Similarly, B dash is connected to switch S2, C dash through S3, and D dash through S4. Okay, fine. Now when you are turning on, when you are turning on the switch S1, keeping S2, S3, S4 open, you are turning on or closing only switch S1. You are closing the switch S1. So what happens? A and A1 are energized. So when A and A1 are energized, the rotor will try to move into a position where the reluctance is minimum. So this is the position where the reluctance is minimum. See, you can see that that is the position corresponds to the rotor where the minimum reluctance is there and the maximum inductance is occurred. Now soon after, then again the next phase is being excited. B is being excited. B dash is being excited. So what happens? What is the tendency? So here you can see that this rotor position 2, you can see that will be moving slightly in the anti-clockwise direction towards this direction, so that again it will be having minimum reluctance that is aligned with the teeth of B. That is, we can see that this will be the structure. So now we can see that in this position what happens, the reluctance is now minimum. That means it has turned through a certain angle in the anti-clockwise direction. Okay, and that angle is given by the relation theta is equal to 360 degree divided by number of rotor teeth into the number of phases. N is the number of phase. And R stands for the rotor teeth. So here I can get it as 360 degree divided by number of phases. How many phases are there? 4 phases into how many rotor teeth are there? Just check. 6 rotor teeth. So into 6. So that is 15 degree. So 15 degree is the rotor angle. Again you are exciting S3 S3. Okay, what happens in exciting S3? So, and all other switches are open and S3 is closed. So C dash will be excited. Therefore, again, the rotor will be slightly moving to the anti-clockwise direction with an angle of 15 degree, and this way the rotor continues to rotate. Okay, so this is the basic principle. And going to the block diagram of a switch reluctance motor, as I told you, the rotor position sensor is there in order to sense the position where is the rotor at that instant of time. Then that value is being sensed back, then only what is the next winding or to be excited is to be found out. So that is given to a controller here, and that controller will sending the control pulses so as to turn on the switches so that a particular phase winding is being excited. So that is very important here. So what are the different types of semiconductor switching circuitry for this purpose? So that is what we are going to discuss in the second topic. So we are going to discuss about the next section, that is the, so this is what I have explained. Now semiconductor switching circuitry or the power controller. So this is the second section that we are going to discuss today. So this is very important too. Now basically there are 5 different switching circuitry for the control of the switch reluctance motor, and they are 2 semiconducting switching devices per phase and 2 diodes, n+1 power semiconductor switching devices and n+1 diodes. Then you can use a bifilar windings, split link circuit is there, and a C-dump circuit is there. So these are the 5 different power semiconductor switching circuitry or simply power controllers. These are very important. Now going to the first part, that is 2 semiconductor switching devices per phase and 2 diodes. So when you are considering a particular phase, I told you you can have a number of phases depending upon the number of stator poles, right? So here I am going to consider it as a 3-phase system. So considering a 3-phase system, I will have phase A, phase B and phase C. So that is what I have discussed here. So these are the phase winding. This is phase winding A dash, this is the phase winding B dash, and the next winding C dash, right? Now for each phase winding, so the control of each phase winding, you will have 2 semiconductor switches and 2 diodes. So if you examine the first phase, you can see 2 switches are there, right? T1 is there and T2 is there. And how many diodes are associated with that? D1 is there and D2 is also there, right? Similarly, you take the next phase B, you have the same thing. If you take the phase C also, you will have the same thing, right? Therefore, you can say that it is the 2 power semiconductor switching devices and 2 diodes per phase. Now how does this works is that is, for turning on when A and A dash are excited, okay, when A and A dash are excited, so when the winding A is connected to the DC power supply by turning on switch T1 and T2, okay, so T1 and T2 will be turned on for exciting the phase A, right? So that depends upon the rotor position, of course. So of course, in order to excite A dash, phase winding A, you have to turn on this switches T1 as well as T2 has to be turned on. Therefore the current flow will be like this, right? The current flow will be like this, big polarity plus minus, like this, polarity plus minus for the inductor or the phase winding, like this. Now in order to de-excite, unenergize this A, and in order to excite the next phase B, you have to turn off this switch. So you are going to turn off this. So what happens? Immediately the energy stored in this phase has to be discharged. So for that, the polarity will now become reverse, like this. Now what happens? This plus will make this D1 forward biased, and this minus will make this D2 reverse biased, right? Therefore again you can see that the current flow will be, okay, so when these two are off, this will be my plus, this will be minus, therefore the current flow will be like this. So back to the supply. So this is the first circuit. Then second is the n+1 switching devices. So here this is also somewhat similar. Here n+1 switching devices and n+1 diodes. So you are having 3 phase here. So you are considering 3 phase. So you will have 4 switches and 4 diodes. So in the previous case you had 6 switches and 6 diodes. So here there is a reduction. Okay. So here I can see that these are the 2 switches. Okay, and this switch is common to every phase, isn't it? So if you're taking this phase, if you're taking this is phase A, this is phase A, this is phase B, this is phase B, and this is phase C. Okay, so if you're considering phase A, okay, if you're considering phase A, in order to turn on or excite a phase A, you have to turn on this T and T1, right? Now in order to turn or excite this phase B, T again has to be turned on as well as T2 also. Now in order to excite phase C, again T as well as T3, right? So that this T is common for every phase winding. Okay. Now, so when you're considering first phase A, when this capital T, this T and this T1 are on, then as usual the current will be flowing like this, right? With polarity plus here, minus here. Now in order to excite the next phase, you have to remove this excitation for T1, turning on, triggering for T1 has to be removed. So what happens when T1 and T is removed? Then what happens? The current flow, that is the polarity will become like this, minus here, plus here. So this plus will make the diode D1 forward biased, and this minus will make this D forward bias. So now this D is common. So while discharging of a phase A, you can see that this diode D1 and this D is now coming into role. Now for the discharging of phase B, you can see which one will be what will be the directions of the current flow. You can see that this will be the direction of current flow, right? I'll just draw it once again. So you can see that if you are exciting phase B, this will be excitation plus here, minus here, and it will be excited like this through T, then here, then through T, then here, like this. This is the path for turning on. Now when this T and this T2 are switched off, turned off, what happens? When it is turned off, you can see that this will become minus, this will become plus, which will make this D2, and this minus will make this D. So in that case also D is common. So D is common to all the phase. So the charging, this D is common, and for discharging this D is also common. That is why we are using n+1 switching devices and n+1 diodes here. Now in bifilar windings, actually these are the two separate windings, but they are magnetically coupled. Okay, these are magnetically coupled, and for exciting or for energizing a particular winding, T1 is turned on. So when T1 is turned on, the current passes through the phase winding A, and when T1 is turned on for de-energizing the particular winding, the energy stored will be discharged back to the source through this particular diode D1. And here if it is phase B, it will be discharging to through D2 to the DC source. Okay, and for phase C, charging or excitation will be done with the help of switch T3, and when it is turned off or excitation is to be removed, the energy stored here, it has to be discharged back to the source, and that is done with the help of D3. So this is the bifilar winding, that is bifilar windings, right? Then next is a split link circuit. So this is another circuit known as a split link circuit. Now in split link circuit, this winding is actually split into two halves, and the supply is also, see here, the supply is also divided into two halves. Now while exciting, okay, during the conduction period, the energy will be supplied by one half of the DC source, and during the commutation, energy is fed back through the other half of the supply. For example, if you are exciting phase A, okay, suppose if you are turning on switches T1 is turned on, so here this will be the path, right? Okay, so T1 will be turned on for exciting the upper side, so this one, okay. And when T1 is turned off, the stored energy, okay, when T1 is turned off, the stored energy will be discharged. The stored energy here will be discharged like this path and this path, see. So this is the discharging path. So I can say that energy is supplied back to the source through the second half of the, or lower, the other half, isn't it? So charging will require one half of the supply, and the energy is fed back to the DC supply through the other half of the supply. So this is the split link circuit, and this is applicable only for the even phase number. Now next is a C-dump converter. C-dump converter, and in a C-dump converter, okay, that is also applicable for odd phases or even phases. And here if I am considering phase A here, suppose in order to excite this phase A, I have to turn on this T1, right? So for energizing the phase A, T1 is turned on. So when this T1 is turned on, okay, the current flow will be like this. So this is the path. Now when T1 is turned off, that is, if you want to de-energize this phase winding A of the switch reluctance motor, and if you want to excite the next phase of the motor, what happens? You have to turn off this switch. Only if you remove this excitation or the triggering to this switch, only you can excite the next phase. But when you are turning off this switch T1, the energy stored in the phase A has to be discharged. So that is done with the help of this path. So when T1 is turned off, the energy stored will be discharged. So immediately when it was charging, this was the polarity, right? So when it is discharging, this will be the polarity. Okay, this will be the polarity. Now this plus will make this diode D1 forward bias, right? Because this is now plus, polarity will get reversed. Okay, so what happens? This D will be forward biased. Therefore the stored energy is actually given to the dumped to this capacitor. So stored energy is now transferred to the dump capacitor CD. Okay, so here there will be a voltage that will be developed here, that is V0, right? Now this voltage can be again recovered. This voltage can be recovered by means of a chopper circuit. How? That is done with the help of this chopper. This LT-DR-TR is nothing but a chopper. Okay, so chopper circuit consists of TR, LR and DR, and with the help of the chopper it can be given back to the DC source. So this is the power semiconductor switches which are used for the control of the switch reluctance motor, because only when you excite the windings of the switch reluctance motor you can control the rotation of the rotor. So that is done with the help of this power semiconductor switching circuits. So in this video we have discussed about the, I'm just concluding, we have discussed about the construction of a switch reluctance motor, what is the basic difference between a stepper motor and a switch reluctance motor. Now we have also discussed about the power semiconductor switching circuitry, or simply the power controllers which are used for the control of the switch reluctance motor. Okay, so that is all about this session. Thank you.